So let's talk today about something extremely important. Can I realistically prepare to buy a home? Okay, so I know that this is going to be different for every single one of you, okay, and including for myself. I mean, depends on what stage you're in, and there's so many other different factors. But let's keep it today to 6 points that I think are going to make a difference between you and buying a property that is going to help you develop your future, leave an inheritance, live more comfortably, etc. So, very first point is know where you stand. And for that, we need to start asking a few questions. So we can start off with, what's your credit score? All right. Well, the reason why this is important and it's a factor is because obviously just depends on where we stand with your credit score. We might need to do a couple of other things around trying to get you prepared over for this. Okay. So it's going to be very different if you are on a 580 credit score versus you're a 650 versus you are a 7 or 800 credit score. Okay. Now, doesn't mean that you can't buy. It just means that we're trying to plan. Second point, how much have you saved? All right. So the whole savings idea, it doesn't only have to do with down payment and closing costs. It really does have to do with, well, presenting to a bank that you have the ability to save up and make your mortgage payments in case something happens. So extremely important for you to kind of keep in the back of your mind as this moves forward. Okay. Or as you started with the planning situation. All right. The second one is, what is your monthly income? Or the following one is, what is your monthly income in relationship to your debts? Okay. So your debt to income. Okay, if you're making a certain amount of income, and let's say you make $50,000 a year, and then you go get $1,000 mortgage or $1,000 car payment, it doesn't work. My people, it doesn't work. So let's make sure that we're doing our right decisions in order for us to get to that point. I think it's going to be extremely important. Now, the whole reason why we're talking about this is that we can't really create a plan unless we don't have a starting point. So extremely important for you to take into consideration of where we sit and where we land with these types of situations, because not every one of you is going to have exactly the same process, systems, goals, etc. Okay. Now, I will add this. It was extremely important. Okay, that I do want to make sure that everybody focuses on. Look, let's know what we're going to try to accomplish. Okay, so I know that buying a house, but it can be different for everybody. So start off with the very first thing before we start looking at credit score and all this other good stuff, right? Which I know it's extremely important. Uh, the most important thing that we need to focus on is what type of home you're going to buy. Where are you living? So if you're buying a house in a place where or you want to buy a condo or a duplex or a fourplex, okay, it's going to be very different for each one of you. It's very important that you keep that in mind as we're doing this planning stages. If you're looking at doing an investment property, this picture is going to look different for you. If you're looking at buying a second home or a vacation home, right? And many of you actually prefer to buy a vacation home prior to buying your primary residence. Look, and if that's what you want to do, it is totally different. Now, these are just baselines, but I would say that that's the very first thing. Before you even go through all this other stuff that I talked to you about, because obviously it's important, we would start there. Now, moving ahead. Okay. Point number 2, you may need less than you think. Okay. So let's debunk this huge myth of 20% down. The whole idea of 20% down really came down for you to be able to avoid mortgage insurance, and not even try to avoid mortgage insurance. It's just what banks see as a safety net. So when somebody comes in and puts that kind of money, well, they have a better understanding on how money works, right? And they've had a different capacity and ability of being able to do so. So a lot of buyers assume that you need 20% down. You don't need 20% down. However, it'd be beautiful if you could. It avoids a whole lot of other sections and stuff and charges that you might not need. So how much in reality do you need? Some loan programs, honestly, 0 down. Okay. Now, please keep in mind, down payment assistance programs are not just essentially first-time home buyer programs. These are, well, I'm going to come out and say it. Okay. These programs should be called can't save down payment programs. Okay. I know it's a little bit bold, and hear me out. I know that some of you guys don't have the ability of doing so. I've been in that situation. So I'm not going to tell you guys, that it's always, conducive to that. However, that's what down payment assistance programs do. They do help you with um, your down payment. The idea is that you're financing 100% of your purchase price. The money isn't free. And in some states, they have grants, and we can go down the whole idea of how many down payment assistance there are. And if you have any questions, please put them down there. I don't know what state you're listening to me from, but I'm guaranteeing you that there's a program in your state that will allow you to go into this. And some of them come with some crazy restrictions. So just make sure that you are aware of those things, because they're not really intended for you to be able to build wealth in the way that you're thinking. You'll build wealth because you'll have your home and you'll pay it off, and then it'll be yours, right? Completely without owing anybody. But they're not intended for you to kind of purchase and then rent out and then stack and et cetera. Like a whole subset of things need to happen in order for that to make sense for you. So please make sure, drop it down in the comments, and check into this. And by now, by the way, if you haven't already subscribed, make sure to subscribe to the channel, ask any questions, and reach out. We have the ability of lending in a lot of states. Okay. So just make sure to inquire if you want to, ask a little bit more about that. And like always, I'm going to be truthful and upfront with you. I want to see you succeed. I truly want to see you succeed. So let's make sure to keep doing that. Okay. Point number 3. Okay, so this is bold, okay? But I need you to stop shifting this perspective on, oh my God, what's my rate? Or what's the interest rate? Or interest rates are too high. Look, the number one thing that you need to concentrate on is monthly payment, not just price. Okay, depending on where you're purchasing, the purchase price and the mortgage payment are not going to be the same across the board. So a $400,000 home means nothing if the payment doesn't fit your budget. And that's the truth of it. However, if you're also looking at purchasing a property in, let's say, Dallas, Texas, and you're comparing it, to Miami, Florida, and then, Phoenix, Arizona, same $400,000 home, totally different mortgage payments, so please make sure that that we go through this example. Okay. You have to be comfortable with the mortgage payment first, and then the purchase price on the house will follow. You have to work backwards. Okay. So, and look, let's be realistic. If you come up to me and you say, if you say something like, I need my mortgage payments to be the same as my rental. Okay, I'm going to be very bold with you right now. If you come up to a loan officer or a real estate agent and you pretend, right, like you have some type of negotiation factor with this, no, it does not affect our negotiation. As a matter of fact, it doesn't even sound realistic. Okay, I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. Okay, and rentals, for a 1-bedroom apartment can be somewhere in the neighborhood of about $1,700. Okay, perfect. Now, this single bedroom apartment, you'll have a family of 3 that is living in it. Okay, so they'll come up to me and say, hey, Gian, I want you to help me buy a house. I want to buy a 3-bedroom home. Perfect. And then this 3-bedroom home, I need it to be the same mortgage payment as my rental right now. I don't need it to be more. And I'm like, wait a minute. You want to buy a house that is a 3-bedroom with a backyard, with a garage, and compare it to your apartment that's $1,700, like a single bedroom? Okay. Hopefully by now you've understood that there's a little bit of unrealistic expectations with this. Okay. And I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, but I do not make up the rules. I do not make up the numbers. All I do is I guide you through this process for you to be able to succeed. And I care about you. You can't come in with that. Okay. You're going to have a larger payment, especially if you come in and say, hey, I want to buy a house, $1,700. And I want down payment assistance program, and I want all the free grants, and the free things that the government is giving. The government doesn't give you anything. Down payment assistance programs we discuss, those are going to finance 100% of the property. So you owe 100%. And if you're on an FHA, you're going to owe 103, maybe 103.5% out of it. So the math doesn't lie. Okay, I'm sorry to tell you, be the bearer of bad news. That is just simply how it works. Now, you do have the ability of building wealth in the future. However, it's going to take you longer. I'm not saying that they're bad. I'm just saying that they're circumstantial, and every situation is a tad teeny, weeny, 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 weeny different. So just make sure that you are aware of this. Start with the mortgage payment and then let's reverse engineer it. Yes, I hear already what you're going to say. We have, credit gurus and financial advisors, 25 to 30%, 35% of your total budget, of, household income on a monthly basis, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I get it. Everybody's situation, everybody's risk threshold is different. When I bought my first home, okay, I was at 57% of my total household income was my mortgage payment. You just have to be aware that you're going to have to make some life changes. The life changes that I've done have helped me quadruple, quintuple, 10x, the amount of money that I invested into that, and the efforts that I put into it. So you have to fast forward and be patient. So just want to tell you this. If you are planning on doing this or purchasing a property and getting into this situation, I need you to be aware that investing in real estate, it's almost like watching paint dry. It's like watching grass grow. It's going to take some time. So just be patient. That's why all these programs, none of them are bad. It's just that you're expecting an immediate gratification out of it, and it just doesn't exist. So please keep that in mind. All right. Point number 4. Okay, credit can be improved. All right, so sorry to hear that some of you guys have a low credit score. Okay, you missed mortgage payment. I'm sorry, you missed, credit card payments. You had a repo. You went through some financial troubles. I get it. Okay, and there's a lot of stuff that happens with it. But there's real life. It happens to all of us. Okay, nobody wakes up in the morning and says, hey, I gotta want to go get into a car accident today. Like nobody does that. Okay, or a flat tire, or you name it. Perils happen all the time. So we have to plan for the future. Okay, having bad credit score right now doesn't mean that you always have that. There's a lot of things that we can do. We can create a program. We can advise you on, hey, paying down debts will allow you to do this. Okay, if you get into these payment plans, right? Or if you stop the spending here and whatnot. But it all really comes down to spending. Okay, spending and saving and being able to create this pattern and this plan of helping you get to that situation. So just be mindful, okay, of there's so many things that we can do with credit. And if you have a bad credit score right now, don't get discouraged, okay? Don't just throw in the towel and say, oh my God, that's it. Don't do that. I've been there, missing payments and, kind of getting harassed. And I get it, making bad financial decisions. But that's the reason why we're making this video is for you guys for you to really be in that mentality. There's something to look forward to. Don't get too confused or too brought down, by your credit score. Okay, let's just put the plan in place and do that. Now, I will say that many of you probably qualify. You're just thinking, and hearing the news, and I don't know where you're getting your information from, right? So look, we can do that. We can do loans down to 500 credit score. It doesn't mean that your credit score is holding you back. It's just your financial situation has to fit that, right? The lower the credit score, the higher the risk. Okay. Point number 5. All changes add up. All right. So what does that mean? Okay. Let's keep on going with, I guess, this is very tied, to point number 4, but let's be realistic here. Reducing unnecessary spending. Okay. Listen, you don't need to have Paramount Plus and Peacock and YouTube TV and then Disney Plus. You don't. Okay. No one does. Please, you get one if that's it, or get rid of them all. Doesn't matter. Super important, okay? Paying off credit cards. Dude, you have a bonus or go sell something, pay off that credit card. It's going to cost you 50% more, okay? And then, setting aside a little bit of money if you can, right? So let's say that you pay off your debt and then, putting $100, $200, $300 away. Okay, that helps you out. Little changes. It doesn't have to be tremendous. It doesn't have to be huge. Small habits today can create a down payment tomorrow. Let me repeat that. Small changes today can create a down payment tomorrow. So don't get discouraged. Let's do those small things that really do make a difference. Okay. Point number 6, you do not have to figure it out alone. And I know that you're watching this video because you're trying to figure out your own finances and you're trying to see the possibility and, okay, is it going to work? Is it not going to work? But the reality of this is that you aren't alone. Listen, consult with me. As a mortgage professional, my job is to look at the whole financial picture and just help you put a plan together. I'm going to tell you if you're missing, money in there, or if we need to rebuild credit or whatever the situation is. All of these things matter. Okay. So you have to remember that sometimes, you're ready now and sometimes you're not. Sometimes the circumstances and what we have to do to help you get qualified, they just don't add up. My job is to help you get through that. So if you're 3, 6, or 12 months away, it doesn't matter. Either way, I can help you. So let's make sure to get in touch. Okay? It's better than guessing. Always better than guessing. All right? Now, in closing, just want to kind of bring this up to you. The biggest mistake that people make is assuming that they can't buy a home without actually checking. Conversation costs nothing. Please, nothing. And it could show you that homeownership is closer than you actually think. Subscribe, text, email, whatever method of communication you want. Okay, except, smoke signs. I'm in the office all the time, so I can't really see those. Make sure to subscribe. I'd love for you to reach out if you have any questions. Let's go through these conversations. Let me help you get into a position where you're changing your family dynamic. Remember, subscribe, comment, share, and let me know what your experience is. What else would you add to this? I want to know. Talk to you soon.